Hey friends, it's Laura. Are there some tricky products in your stash that you're having a hard time finding a use for? Let's dive into some product play and see how we can get them used.
So for today's product play, we're going to talk about vellum. And vellum can come in a lot of colors. It can come in a lot of patterns. It can be just a plain kind of white, mostly see-through situation. That's the most common kind that I've seen used. It can come in full color, like this one is quite blue, but still pretty see-through as well. It has a bit of a plastic feel to it, not really like paper per se, and kind of like wax paper even is the feel for it. If you've not used it, you can have it with some metallic overlay on it. So this one has a silver overlay on it. And then you have this kind here that isn't quite as see-through. It's a bit thicker, and it's called Yellow Sunshine. It's extremely thick, and you really can't see through it, but it is in fact vellum. So that's interesting. Yeah, it does. It says vellum. So it can be transparent or mostly transparent, but it can also be opaque. So keep that in mind. But generally, it's kind of a plasticky feeling paper, which is really, really nice. I use this quite often for layering. So let me show you a few layouts where I've used it. Some are more subtle than others, so keep that in mind. On this page, I've used some of that white vellum as a layering piece between my photos and this very busy pattern paper. So what this does is tones down the look of this busy black and white pattern paper next to the photos. So it's kind of a really soft edge surrounding them, a nice little border that sort of softens that bold black and white print in the background. I really like the way that vellum can be used to take a bold in-your-face pattern or even mixed media work and just soften it. Make it look not so standout. Make it just look a bit muted. Really love the way that that works. On this next layout though, I've got some of this bold foil vellum, and I've used it to back a cut file. So something to keep in mind here, vellum is mostly transparent, not all of it, but a lot of it is transparent. And so keeping that in mind, I wouldn't necessarily use it to back a cut file if the background was going to be super visible through the vellum itself, unless you want it to be. But in this case, because the background was pretty soft, just a dark color, it doesn't really show through. There's a couple of spots you can see stars, but that's about it. It's pretty good background to use vellum on top of. Here I've used vellum to create some DIY embellishments. This is such a fun way to use vellum. I have punched it using my shape punch and then layered it back behind some punched butterflies. It might even be die cut and not punched. That seems likely because I've had trouble punching vellum in the past. So this may actually be with die cuts. With metal dies rather. So I have those backing my butterflies, giving them a really beautiful layer. So it allows them to be kind of look 3D because you've got, in this case, there's a cardstock layer, a vellum layer, and a pattern paper layer on each of these butterflies. And that extra little layer, even though it's super thin and a super soft muted color, it gives the impression of depth. Layering gives the impression of depth. And so by adding these really thin, subtle layers, it looks like it's far more dimensional than it actually is, which is really fun. It also softens the look around these sweet photos. And so they're not quite so in your face, even though they're such large clusters. That beautiful vellum just sort of calms everything down a little bit. In this layout, I have used some vellum ephemera pieces and tucked them in amidst these beautiful frames. So I have one here, I have a vellum floral here. My title is in a metallic vellum, and some of the pieces I've tucked into the frames are also vellum. So there's actually a lot of vellum on this page, but unless you're really looking for it, I don't think it stands out terribly much. I especially love the ones with the metallic outlines. This is really pretty, but it's very subtle. It's very soft. It adds that beautiful pink foiling without being in your face with it. And I think that's kind of the beauty of vellum, is because it's so subtle, you can get away with bringing in a metallic that's like pink metallic, but it's not that bright because the softness of that vellum really helps to counteract it a little bit and make it more muted. So I love the idea of using vellum embellishments. They're very popular right now in mixed packs of embellishments, of ephemera. You get vellum, sometimes you get acetate, things like that. And this is a great way to use them. Just tuck them in amidst other papery pieces. Like these are frames that are backed with pattern paper. So just tucking them in alongside those pattern paper frames really works to help them just nicely soften up a rather busy layout. Now in this example, I have again back to cut file, but I've done something a bit tricky here. Instead of just using the background bit, so the white underneath, so this is a pink striped vellum, and instead of just using the background white behind it, I've also tucked some sequins that you can see through the vellum. And I think that's just a fun little pocket, or a little like hidden bit of fun, because these are so shiny and bright, but beneath the vellum, they look very soft and subtle. And I love the look of that. On top of which, I've used it up here with the heart, which it may be kind of hard to tell on camera, is a shaker pocket. So you don't have to use acetate on your shaker pockets with sequins inside. You can also use vellum. It's softer, it's not as in your face with the sequins, but it's definitely fun to just see the hint of them back behind the photos. And I really enjoy the overall gentle feel this gives to the layout that kind of counteracts some of this crazy, busy colors and pattern in the background. Now here's the last one, and in this case I've used the vellum to mark out the area I want my photos. So I've got a big vertical design happening here with layered papers, but I wanted to do a grid pattern at the top. So what I've done is to separate the area that I wanted to put my grid with this vellum. It's soft, it's very subtle, but it beautifully frames my photos and journaling. And I really like the added touch of muting this beautiful bold dark blue in the background. It definitely just calms everything down a bit. And so my photos take center stage and the background is still the background. So really love how that looks. And you can see a bit more of the vellum here than you could on the very first one. So you don't have to tuck it in and hide it or use it as a very soft, thin layer. It can be a big, bold statement on the page in that you've used a lot of it to cover a large area. But what it really does best is to soften the overall look of the page. I really like vellum. I haven't used it in a while, and I need to start including it more often in my kits. I did for April, which is when I'm recording this, and used a whole piece of this beautiful holographic vellum, and it really has reignited my love for vellum and want to use it more often. So let me know what you think in the comments below, and until next time, bye y'all.